welcome to the Magma Chamber, and today we are finishing up our retrospective of the band Rush. So I've said in previous videos that they're my favorite band, so having a lot of fun going through all these albums and sharing them with you. If you're new to the band, please check them out, and if you're a fan of the band, maybe not all their albums, maybe give some of them a second chance. So we ended the last video with 1989's Presto. They got a new producer with Rupert Hine, and it was a little bit more back into the guitar-based sound of Rush, and maybe the keyboards being pushed back a little bit more. I know Alex was very happy about that. So we're continuing on with 1991's Roll the Bones. And Roll the Bones was a pretty good album for them, financially, successfully. I love the album cover on this, once again by Hugh Syme. Very cool stuff right there, and as you can see, Rush changed their logo again for this record with all the dice and stuff going in there with the kid kicking the skull going across. This is a great album. This is a very happy sounding album. They sound like they're having a great time on this. Songs like Dreamline, Bravado. So probably the song on here that some people kind of had a problem with was the title track, simply because it had a little rap part in it. And I really feel like they were taking this song a little bit too seriously, because Rush definitely was not taking themselves seriously with that song. But it has a good message to it. I mean, the whole album is about taking chances. I mean, there's a song called Ghost of a Chance is great. You Bet Your Life, things like that. So it was all just about kind of stepping up and going for it and just taking a chance at doing certain things. So it had a great message to it. Very positive sounding record, but great stuff right there with Roll the Bones. So as we move ahead to the early 90s here, we're kind of in the midst of the grunge era, and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden. The Seattle scene was coming up. So would Rush go grunge? Well, they've always kind of played to the beat of their own drummer, even though, since they have the best drummer on the planet. And so they released in 1993 the album Counterparts. And I've heard some people say, oh, this is kind of their grunge record. Well, with this, the keyboards are pushed way into the back. I mean, I don't even know if they're really on here, but it's very guitar driven, and it does kind of have a dirtier guitar tone to it, a little more grungier, kind of a little more aggressive sounding. But it's not a grunge album, not to me. This is still Rush being Rush. I mean, there's some great songs on here. The first song, Animate, is terrific. In fact, the band Allegiant, they're a technical death metal band, they covered this song and did a fantastic job. They also covered Subdivisions from Signals as well. So check out Allegiant's covers of those songs. They did a fantastic job. But this is actually my first Rush album. A friend of mine actually introduced me to Rush with this record, and just something about it that I just loved right off the bat. And he said, okay, well, you got to go check out Moving Pictures in 2112. So I got those two records and then kind of just worked my way in either direction, and that's kind of where I ended up, just being a huge Rush fan. So great song. There's actually a song on here called Alien Shore that I really love that they never played live, and I can't understand why, because that's one of the best songs on this album. If you Google songs that Rush never played live, you'll see a whole list of stuff that they never played live, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can see why maybe they didn't play that, but a song like Alien Shore, I'm like, come on, it's one of the best songs. But this is a great record. It's a little more rocking. Once again, the people that kind of lost interest during the keyboard era kind of were back on board when they released this record. So great stuff. They did a great tour for it. Great album there. So they're riding the wave still, and in 1996 they released the album Test for Echo. I think that this record is one that really gets overlooked. I think it's just as strong as Counterparts in a lot of ways. Great artwork by Hugh Syme once again, and if you look really closely, you see little people, little mountain climbers climbing up on the stone man right there. But there are some great songs in this album as well. I think it's great front to back. The title track, Test for Echo. The second track, Driven, is a little heavier. They played that one live quite a bit, even way past their tour for this record. Driven kind of always seemed to be in the set list after that. Half the World, Totem, Time in Motion is kind of a heavier, a little more technical sort of song a little bit. Dog Years is great, Virtuality is great. The song Resist actually ended up becoming a fan favorite. It's a great song. Carve Away the Stone is a great way to end the record. So, you know, in their whole discography, I think Test for Echo is one that tends to get passed over, and it shouldn't. I think everybody should check this out. If you like Counterparts, I think you would like this. So definitely check out Test for Echo. So another 4 records go by, and so it's time for another live album, and so they released Different Stages Live. This was all done from the Test for Echo tour except for set 3, which is actually a recording of a show they did in 1978 on the Farewell to Kings tour. So you get, you know, 2 discs of this tour, and then set 3, the 3rd disc of that old show from 78. So Farewell to Kings is a great record, so it's really cool to have an old show like that. Features Bastille Day, By Tour and the Snow Dogs, Xanadu, Farewell to Kings, Cygnus X1, I mean, you know, all the old classics on there. So Different Stages Live was great. 3 discs, plenty of songs. I mean, you get so much. And a lot of these songs did show up on previous live albums, and there are more live albums to come. So if you have all these like I do, you have a lot of songs repeated on those other albums. But when you're a fan, you don't really care. I'll hear them again and again. So great stuff. Also on this tour, they brought back 2112. The Test for Echo tour, they brought back 2112, and they played the whole song, all 20 whatever minutes of it, played the whole thing on this tour. So that was big for the fans and big for the band as well. So Different Stages Live is fantastic. Definitely check it out. So after the tour for Test for Echo, Neil Peart had some tragedy in his life. He lost his wife and his daughter in the same year. And so you can imagine what that would do to somebody. So he didn't want to play drums, and the other guys in the band, you know, they didn't want to get a new drummer. They, you know, and they waited for him. They waited for him, and that's really awesome that they did that. They could have easily gone and said, well, we're going to get somebody to replace you for a little while when you're ready to come back. But they didn't do that. They did both release solo albums. Geddy and Alex did. But you know, it wasn't Rush, and to be honest, I've never listened to those albums. Not that I didn't want to, I just never got around to it. So what Neil did is he basically got on his motorcycle and he drove all around the country and just kind of sort of found his drive to be a musician again. He wrote a book called Ghost Rider. So you can imagine that it threw him for a loop. I mean, playing drums was, you know, not the most important thing in his life at the time. So a few years go by, fans are wondering if they're ever going to get back together, and finally the guys start jamming again. Neil starts to get his passion for playing drums again, and in 2002 they come back with a vengeance with Vapor Trails. Vapor Trails, not back here, is actually one of my favorite Rush albums. This thing has energy to spare. So the very first track, One Little Victory, I mean, you can just see that title and kind of see that just the fact that they're back is a victory. The fact that Neil is back behind the kit is a victory. And so the first thing you hear is just Neil just going off, drum solo. And which is funny because he didn't really want to start the album that way. He didn't want to start the song that way. And Alex and Geddy talked him into it and said, man, look, the fans are waiting for you to be back. Nothing wrong with showing off a little bit right off the bat to say, I'm back, everybody. So he comes back and just fires off, and everything that follows that drum part. I mean, if that's not enough to get you amped up as a Rush fan, I don't know what will. But the whole album is incredible. Some fantastic songs. There's some heavy stuff on here. I mean, some stuff that's kind of metal. One Little Victory, Ceiling Unlimited is a great song. There's a song called Ghost Rider that's kind of based on Neil's book. The song Vapor Trail, it's okay. As the title track, I kind of felt like it was probably the weakest song on the record, but it's decent. But then you get The Secret Touch, and that song it's killer. It's such a jamming song, and thankfully they played it live. Earthshine is great, Nocturne, Out of the Cradle is great. Just so much. I mean, they sound so happy to be back. And as a fan, I was happy they were back. So Vapor Trails is incredible. One complaint that they got with this record was the production on it. It was basically produced by the band and Paul Northfield. A lot of people complained that it sounded brick-walled. Like everything was just cranked way up, everything sounded too loud. Some people complained that their ears were tired from listening to it. And I can kind of see that. I mean, everything is just sort of turned up to 11. But it never really bothered me. I thought the songs were great. But I guess the band themselves kind of felt like that the production was somewhat lacking. So in 2013, they actually released Vapor Trails Remixed. Still produced by Paul Northfield. The only thing is they remixed it with David Bottrill. David Bottrill has produced some Tool albums. He's a great producer. I mean, other than this and working with Tool, that's the only thing I know of that he's done. I'm sure he's done a lot more. But with this remix, not everything is brick wall. There's a little more peaks and valleys, a little more layers to it. And there were layers on the original mix as well. But with this, you kind of start to hear some things that you didn't hear before, which is really cool. I suppose my only complaint about this would be the song Nocturne. On the original, in the chorus, Geddy's voice was kind of layered, and it gave it it made it more atmospheric. It gave it this really cool sound. And on the remix, it seems like they stripped all those layers away, and you just get one layer of Geddy's vocals. And it's not quite as effective to me, but that's a little nitpick. I mean, either version of this album you end up with, you're going to be just fine. And but this is a great remix. This is a remix done very well. So I don't know how common this one is to find anymore. I don't know if they kind of just cycled this one out and then brought in the remix as the primary version of this, but either way, you can't go wrong with this record. One of my favorite Rush albums, hands down. So with this tour, the band is back, and so they release the live album, Rush in Rio. So this is the DVD version of it. I mean, they start the tour, they start the show with Tom Sawyer. So my first time seeing Rush in concert, me and my brother went and saw him in Dallas, and it was on this tour. And they come out and they start with Tom Sawyer, which a lot of times in the past, they would play Tom Sawyer towards the end of the set. You know, it's kind of like we're gonna play our big hit way later on in the show. And what's cool about Rush is they've actually done some shows where they never even played Tom Sawyer. You know, we're not gonna play our biggest song. I mean, you know, we know our fans and they're gonna be happy with whatever we give them. So that's really cool. But a great cross-section of their career. Lots of songs from Vapor Trails, especially Secret Touch, as I mentioned before. It's awesome. They rock that. They bring in By Tor and the Snow Dogs, Cygnus X1 in the show with Working Man. So this is a great show. And of course, they're playing in Rio, Brazil, and the crowd is massive. In the shots of the crowd on this DVD, they're singing every word, air drum and everything. I mean, it's just a fantastic show. So they're on fire on this record. So definitely check out Rush in Rio if you can. So they're riding the wave, and after a while, they released the album Snakes and Arrows. So this came out in 2007. I would say that after being so amped up for the last record, Vapor Trails, I was a little underwhelmed with this one. And I think it's because the band just sounded, I don't want to say they sounded uninspired, but they sounded a little tired. And I think it's just the pacing of some of the songs. You had some very upbeat rocking songs with the last record, and it was so just like joyous that this record seems to be a little bit more cynical. A lot of the songs are more mid-paced to slow. So it's really kind of like they kind of hit the brakes a little bit on this record. And even the pacing of the record, you know, right off the bat, you know, you start with the song Far Cry, which is a good rocking song. I mean, it's the first song they released from it. It was really good. And then the second song, Armor and Sword, things just come to a screeching halt. It's a very slow, you know, and it's not that it's slow, that it's bad or anything. It's just, it really just zaps the energy right after that first rocking number. You know, they needed something a little more upbeat, but that's the thing, is that there really aren't a lot of upbeat songs in this record. You know, they don't really rock out that much, but there's good stuff, and I think you have to listen to it a few times to really appreciate it. I mean, even the artwork, you know, it's still Hugh Syme, but it's a little bit odd. But the songs are decent. I just don't know if the flow of the record is as good and as cohesive as some of the previous ones. But over time, I've come to appreciate this album a lot more. I think Neil's lyrics are great on this album. You get a couple of instrumental tracks on here. The Way the Wind Blows is great, and really the last song on here, We Hold On, it's a pretty rocking song as well. And I remember the first time listening to this, when I got to that last song, I was like, this is great. I wish that they had kind of amped it up a little bit more throughout the rest of the record. So it's bookended by these big rocking songs, and but you know, it's just give it a try and just see what you think of it. Give it a chance. But you know, I've had to work on this one a little bit to really appreciate it, but not bad. But with that tour, they did the Snakes and Arrows tour. Finding my material here. Snakes and Arrows tour, I did see them on this tour. They played quite a few songs from Snakes and Arrows. They did play Armor and Sword, which kind of, once again, put a screeching halt on the show, sort of, in my opinion. But they did a great show. Kind of broke out some unusual songs, ones that they either haven't played live before or just haven't played in a long time. They brought out Digital Man as the second track, Entre Nous, Circumstances they played from 2112. So they threw in some little Easter eggs, some little things to say, hey, we haven't forgotten about some of these songs, you know. But a pretty good show. Not as good as Rush in Rio or when I saw them on the Vapor Trails tour, but it was still incredible, man. Rush is Rush. They're going to do a great show no matter what. But Snakes and Arrows live, pretty good live album right there. So also along with that, believe it or not, at this point it was their 30th anniversary. So they toured for their 30th anniversary, and we got R30. This was a great show. I didn't see them on this tour. I don't know what I was doing, but it wasn't as important as going to see Rush, but I went the other way, I guess. But they start the show with the R30 Overture, which is sort of little snippets of some of their other songs. So you get a little bit of Finding My Way, which we haven't heard in years, Anthem, Bastille Day, Passage to Bangkok, Cygnus X1, Hemispheres. Some of these old songs they haven't played in a long time, they sort of put them in this little medley. But you know, they go through Tom Sawyer, 2112 a little bit, and they also kind of during this time released, I don't have it with me, but a little covers album. It's sort of an EP, there's not that many songs on it. Yeah, it's called Feedback, and so they cover Cream, The Who, and Blue Cheer, who was a big influence on them. And it's kind of odd hearing Rush play cover songs, but they did a really good job on it. So they included some of those tracks on the R30 set list. Summertime Blues, Heart Full of Soul, The Seeker from The Who. So they kind of threw some of those from Feedback on here. So pretty good set there on the R30 tour. And also during this time, in 2011, they released the Time Machine album, or live album. So live in Cleveland. So it was cool that they recorded this in the first U.S. city that they really broke out. They recorded it in Cleveland. So one thing that was cool about this was that they played moving pictures front to back. What's a little odd on this set though is that the first half of the record ends disc 1, and then disc 2 starts with the second half, starts with Camera Eye. I thought it was kind of weird that it was split up like that, but I guess it's just how the disc was filled up on this. But great set. I mean, you get all the moving pictures and you get all the other songs you would expect. They bring back Time Stand Still, Presto, Stick It Out from Counterparts. And they also played 2 unreleased tracks, 2 new tracks, BU2B and Caravan, which would appear on the next album that we're about to talk about. So people got a little bit of a preview of what the next album was going to be like with the Time Machine tour. So this is another great live album right here. Once again, a lot of these songs you get on previous albums, previous live albums, but hey man, it's Rush. I'm not going to complain. I'll listen to any of it, so all good. So in 2012, we get the album Clockwork Angels. This would be the final Rush album, and what a great album to end on. Hugh Syme did the artwork again. I guess my only complaint about this record, the production is great, the songs are great. Some of the energy that was missing from the last record is back on here. This has got some of their heaviest stuff. BU2B is really heavy, which they played on Time Machine. Starts with Caravan that they played on Time Machine. So the two songs that people had already heard, they started the album with that, and the rest of the album follows suit. The song Headlong Flight, that is a total throwback to Bastille Day from Caress of Steel. I mean, that the main riff sounds a lot like it, but this is a fantastic record from beginning to end. But my only complaint, I guess, would be the cover artwork, because the inside of this thing has some incredible artwork inside, and I just kind of wonder why they didn't use, you know, some of these other pictures. Well, it's kind of hard to see that, and I can't get close enough without it getting fuzzy. But there are some really awesome images in here that I feel like could have been more effective as an album cover. But, you know, as it is, I mean, it's a clock and with red clouds. I mean, I don't know why they decided to go with that, but doesn't stand out much. But you get Rush, you get Clockwork Angels. Every song on here is great. The Wreckers, the Anarchist, Halo Effect, all great stuff. So this is a fantastic record for them to end their career on. I'm glad it wasn't on Snakes and Arrows, because we were like, they kind of went out a little weak, but not so with this. Fantastic album. So, of course, another live album from Rush, and we end up with Clockwork Angels Tour. They play the entire album, minus BU2B. They didn't play that song on this live album. But what's cool about it is they played the whole album with a string section, so it adds a little bit more to it. I mean, and the strings aren't overbearing the band at all. It's just another little layer of atmosphere there for the album. But you know, and what's funny about this set list, they play a lot of songs from their keyboard era. You get Subdivisions, Big Money, Force 10, Grand Designs, a lot of songs from Power Windows, which I thought was kind of odd. So I could see the confusion on people's face going, are they just playing all of Power Windows or what? But, you know, and then you get the entire Clockwork Angels record. You get Tom Sawyer, 2112, The Pass, Limelight, YYZ, of course. So a great live album here. I did not get to see them on this tour either. Once again, I was out doing something dumb and not going to see Rush when they came through Dallas. But anyway, another great album. And so during that time, we already had R30, and by now we're at R40. And I was able to see him on this tour, which is where I got this shirt. This was a fantastic show. R40, I mean, the band has been around for 40 years at this point. It's so hard to believe. But what's cool about this set is they started with their newer material and they just went chronologically backwards. So starts out, you get some songs from Clockwork Angels, you get Far Cry, you know, a couple of songs from Snakes and Arrows, How It Is, Animate, Roll the Bones, get back to Grace Under Pressure, Signals, and then it just goes backwards. You get some songs from Moving Pictures. So it just goes backwards until it gets to What You're Doing and Working Man. So very cool. I mean, there's some bonus tracks on here from different shows. Rush had a way of kind of changing their set list a little bit each night. They might have a couple of songs they would switch out between dates and things like that. So a fantastic set. This has the CDs and the Blu-ray set in it. Very, very cool stuff. And all the humorous, you know, the funny videos that they would have in between some songs, they're all on here as well. So this is a fantastic set, R40. And if you're new to Rush, hey man, this may not be a bad place for you to start. So very cool. So this would be the last tour, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to see them in Dallas on their last tour. And there are a couple of other things, some documentaries I wanted to mention as well. Sam Dunn, you may know him from Banger TV. He's done Headbanger's Journey, Flight 666 with Iron Maiden. He did a Rush documentary because he's Canadian as well. So hey, why not do one on Rush, right? So he did one about the band. It was after the Snakes and Arrows tour is when that was produced. And it was just basically the history of Rush all the way up until that point. So if you ever get a chance to check that out, please do. And then there's another documentary that kind of goes over Rush's very last tour, this R30 Tour. It shows some of the fans and Rush conventions and some of the fans that get together for Rush conventions and things like that. And it shows not all of the last show, but it kind of shows them before and a couple of songs of the very last show. And then the cameras follow them off stage as they're leaving, and nobody's saying a word. And I gotta be honest, I was really bummed out at the end of it. It was really sad, because I know Neil was done. He had a rough tour, even though he played his butt off and it was incredible like he always was. But he was done, and I know that Alex and Geddy, they didn't want it to be done. So it was very, very sad. And then of course we lost Neil. So it's hard to know what the future of Rush is going to be, or if there is going to even be a future of Rush. There's been some rumors that maybe the guys would get another drummer that's at least somewhat inspired by Neil, or maybe can get close to his chops. Maybe somebody like Mike Portnoy, maybe get together, start jamming. Don't know if they'll really release a new album, but it would be really cool to see Alex and Geddy get back together in some form and play some old Rush songs. I think Portnoy definitely could pull it off, and I know he would do it justice. And I think that he's maybe somebody that the hardcore Rush fans could get behind and say, we can't have Neil, let's get the next best thing. But that's all kind of hearsay. I don't know what really the guys are up to, but Alex and Geddy are such incredible musicians. It would be a shame for them to not come back in some form. So here's hoping that at least maybe they'll do another tour with another drummer. I know that's blasphemy for some people. It's like there's only one Neil, and I agree. I mean, the drummers you hear, people like Mike Portnoy and Hans Grossman and people like that, would not be playing at the level that they're playing at without Neil Peart. So they owe everything to him. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my Rush retrospective, and if you're not familiar with the band, hopefully this kind of highlighted a few things for you. Definitely just jump into it. Be patient with Geddy's vocals. If you're not really into them right off the bat, give it a chance. But if you're a Rush fan and you like these videos, please leave me a comment below. What are your favorite Rush albums? I mean, was there anything that you didn't agree with? Like, if I said I liked a certain album and you hate it, tell me what album, tell me why you hate it. But you can follow us over on Instagram at magma_chamber_metal, or email us at gmail at magmachambermetal@gmail.com. We'll see you next time right here on the Magma Chamber, and until next time, keep headbanging. We are the priests.